What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the fifth episode, or book, as I should say, of the book review show. I am grateful and thankful for everybody that's tuning in, as always. And today, we got the Millionaire Next Door. Now, before I say that, as I just said, everybody that's been tuning in since book number one, thank you. I want to give a shout out to y'all. Yeah, I just appreciate y'all, um, for being here since book number one. I know I'm only on book number five, but yeah, I've just been trying to stay consistent with you guys, give y'all, this knowledge that I've been soaking in. So yeah, without further ado, though, let's get to about the book, and just why this book and books like this are so important to me. As I explained before, like before book number one, um, books like these are so you know near and dear to me, and I feel should be to other people because similar to the Bible. This is nothing like the Bible. I don't want to compare it, but like just like I said, there's timeless and you can always go back to them. So similar to the Bible, you know, these books give you knowledge and just give you things that you can take on and have for your rest of your life. Yeah, you definitely won't come away with this like more spiritually, filled. But if I do remember, the great prophecy of T Grizzly did say, "Oh, thy hardship of being broke did something to thy spirit." Yes, that's quoted by T Grizzly. Yeah. So yeah, man. Um, but serious though, like you'll come away financially filled, mentally filled with reading books like this, because just being frank, like growing up and like how I did and being black, like there's not many representations of wealthy, financially literate people around. Like when you're growing up, unless you're in those, you're blessed to be in those environments, then so be it. But for the majority of young kids and Black Americans, you don't grow up in neighborhoods and areas where financial literacy is being taught and is at the top of the list of things to be taught to you. So these books are near and dear to me, man, because um, they're not hiding the game and how to get rich and wealthy, man. They're not hiding it out there. So you get to learn, like down to the nitty gritty on how to you know maintain wealth and achieve wealth. So yeah, that's why these books are so important to me, and just why I choose these books to give to you guys, because just pass it forward and pay it forward to everyone else, because we all need it. And financial literacy is probably the most, or I would say the least, is the most needed, but the least like taught, as I said. So yeah, without further ado of me babbling on, yeah, that's why I choose these books and why they're so near and dear to me. But yeah, let's get into the book. First, as always, let's talk a little bit about the authors. And there's two authors. They're Thomas J. Stanley and William D. Danko. And just a little bit about Thomas J. Stanley. Thomas J. Stanley, father, husband, son, and he was a well-respected researcher and advisor, and he was author of not just this book, but a couple other books. The Millionaire Mindset. His newest book that he did with his daughter is called The Next Millionaire Next Door. Yeah, if you happen to enjoy this book and you like what he did, he has other books that are very well known. He was a well respected researcher and advisor for how to get wealthy and how to maintain wealth in the financial field. So yeah, and then you have William D. Danko, more of a low key guy, but he was another well respected advisor and researcher, and he was actually the chairman for 31 years, and for 9 of those 31 years, he was the chairman of the marketing faculty at Albany State University in New York. Yeah. So yeah, that's him, and he also has another book. Sorry, he also has another book called Richer Than a Millionaire. That is he's well known for as well. So yeah, and so the purpose and basis of this book is to give you, the reader, a detailed insight on how and why the rich get and become rich, so you yourself can become and obtain wealth yourself, and at the same time, show you how to avoid and correct the bad habits and ideas of those who never become wealthy, and or those who flaunt and spend all or more of what they earn. Yeah. And so let's get into these highlights and takeaways of the books that I took away. And first, I want to say, before we even go into the highlights, this whole book is a highlight. Let me tell you, you got to treat this book like it's like a textbook, personally, because like it's so much information in it. You don't want to, like, this is not one of those books you're gonna skim through. And yeah. So again, without further ado, let's get into the highlights. So highlight takeaway number one is the intro. They jump right into it. It's where they explain the difference between being wealthy and the 7 common factors of the wealthy versus those who just have and earn a lot of money and spend it all. So yeah, right from the jump, you get right into the meat and potatoes of everything. And then he goes on. So highlight number 2, what I liked is the frugal section. He explains the true essence of being frugal and how it's the cornerstone of being wealthy. Yes, being frugal. So penny pinching, coupon savers, they own it. Y'all on y'all on the way. There's little things, but like he just basically explains in that section the true essence of, being frugal and how it's the cornerstone of building wealth. And he has an analogy on page 40 in the book, and he says, have you ever noticed those who jog and plan to go jogging are the ones who seem not to need to jog? He says same goes for the wealthy. Those who are wealthy work at staying financially fit, versus those who aren't. They do little or nothing to change. And then in that same section, there's 4 questions that he says every person should ask. When you're looking at why haven't I obtained wealth yet? He said there's 4 questions you got to ask yourself, and it's, does you or your household operate on an annual budget? That's number 1. And then number 2, do you know how much you or your family spend each year on food, clothing, and shelter? That's number 2. And then number 3 is, do you have a clearly defined set of daily, weekly, monthly, annual, and lifetime money goals? And then number 4, do you spend a lot of time planning your financial future? And then another quote that I took away from there that he says in there is, to become wealthy, you have to minimize your realized taxable income and maximize your unrealized income. So yeah, and then we move on and go to highlight number 3, or actually it's section number 3 too, but highlight number 3 is the time and energy section. And that's where he explains and breaks down the correlation, the difference in the ways the time, energy, and money is spent from those who accumulate wealth and those who don't. And I'm not going to dive too deep in that one, but a quote that he has in there that I took away was people who become wealthy allocate their time, energy, and money in ways consistent with enhancing their net worth. Yeah, so then we move on to highlight number 4, and that's "You Aren't What You Drive" section. And this is a little pretty dope. Going into this one because it goes into the shopping and buying thought processes and habits when it comes to cars for those who accumulate wealth and those who don't. And he goes into just like, the different ways and ideas and thoughts, habits for the wealthy when they're buying cars and for those who don't. So yeah. And I like how he just talks about how, like, you may see people with Rolls Royces, but like for those people, that's like 1% of the people who actually really get money. So I like that part. And then we'll go into highlight number 5, and that is the economic outpatient care section. And pretty much in that section, he's good talking about like the demographic of those who pretty much give out their wealth and the effects and reality of those who give out their fortunes and those who don't. And then I like in there's a quote. He says, "People often attempt to shelter their children from the economic realities of life, but such shelters often produce adults who are in consistent fear of tomorrow." And I'm sure if you soak that in, you can see that reality with some people that and then like you look at some of the kids out there or even the grown adults, as it says, who like constant fear of tomorrow, worried about every dollar, because they're sheltered from the realities of of what money and the economy really is about. And also, no, not also, sorry. So we'll move on to highlight number 6, and that's the affirmative action family style section. And my highlight, like takeaway from that one, is he goes into the 10 rules for affluent parents and productive children. And there's 10 of them. I'll just give y'all 5 so I don't hold y'all too long. So one rule is never tell children that their parents are wealthy. That's one rule for those who are wealthy. The second rule is, another one is they teach frugality and discipline no matter how wealthy you are. It's a big one. And then the third one is never give cash or gifts to children as a negotiation strategy. Yeah, terrible idea. But then there's four. Number 4 is emphasize your children's achievements, no matter how small, not just their symbol of success. And essentially, pretty much like, if no matter like what your kid does, if they're in sales, if they did their first sale and then like they had a trash day, but it's their first time in sales, pretty much like telling them like, hey man, celebrate that they got a sale. Like let them know, hey, like, you may have wanted that day to be the top salesman, but you got a sale today. If you get a sale every day, basically just celebrating that. So they just get that in their medicine. It's about the consistency and fact of achieving versus just the status of it. But yeah, and then there's the 5th one is tell your children that there are a lot of more things more valuable than money. So they understand that money is just a tool. So yeah, and then we go into the final and last highlight / takeaway of the book for me, and that's the find your niche, however you say that word, section. And this section is where he lays out all the several different opportunities and occupations in the marketplace in which those who are wealthy are already in and or investing in, and for those who have goals to become wealthy themselves one day should be pursuing. And this is my favorite section personally because, like I say, he goes and he dives in and maps out all the different opportunities and things that like the rich and wealthy people are in. and that you should be looking to be in. And so yeah, this is my favorite one. But there's a quote in there, and before I say the quote, you just have to come to appreciate, like at least I have. You have to come to appreciate like the dry, like kind of, excuse my French, like asshole humor that like these people, like like white people or rich people or like wealthy people kind of have, because it's super dry. It's like super dry and kind of like oh ha, ha, like So this quote is just, I like this quote because it says, it starts the section off too. It says, "Why is it that you're not wealthy? Perhaps it's because you're not pursuing opportunities that exist in the marketplace." Like point blank period. Like, you want to know why you're not wealthy? Like, you're not pursuing anything that's like in the marketplace that's producing like millionaires. And yeah, I'll just stop there. And there's another quote in there that I like, and he says, "Those who specialize in solving the problems of the affluent and their heirs should be in great demand during the next 20 years." And I say, those who specialize in solving the problems of the affluent, or solving the problems of anyone, like anyone, doesn't matter, will always be in great demand. And mind you, this book was published in 1994, 6. Sorry, I'll correct it. It was 94, 96, anyways. So again, when it was, when they wrote this book, next 20 years of 2014 or 16, and it's going to be forever that people who are solving problems are going to become affluent. So, yeah. And then after that, like in that same section, like I said, he goes in detail, like breaks down like all the different avenues and businesses that, the wealthy people are in, and their mindset of, getting into those, whether it's being self-employed or, taking a job with another corporation, and the pros and cons of that. So yeah, that was my last and final highlight slash takeaway. Um, Thank you guys who got to this point and listened to it all. Again, this is the Millionaire Next Door. Yes, your neighbor. Talk to them. They probably got some money. But yeah, man, that's this book. I would give this book 50,000 out of 5, because, like I said, these books, man, they're giving you game, and whether you feel like they're shortchanging you, as far as like, oh, they're giving to them this to me, so they must know more. Hey, man, it doesn't matter. Like, they're literally giving you game right here in these books, man, and just kind of breaking down and you know, and like debunking like the ways of the rich. They explain like, what we see and what they portray on media as far as being rich. That's like a small little, sprinkle of really what's really out there. And I didn't even say this, but I want to shout out to my brother Kevin, who had gifted me this book a few years back, and he probably didn't know like that I wanted to read this book. But I know me and him would always have conversations about, like, we'd be driving. So we lived in Magnolia in Seattle out here, and we'd be driving, and you'd just be like, yo, like, what do these people do out here, bro? Like, how do these people like maintaining and able to live out here? And of course, some of them probably got gifted it, but like when you read this book, like reading these books, you realize like, yeah, like it's just so many opportunities out there. Like we only think of like most people only think of like I would say max 10. Like I can't, like if you ask most people, they probably think of like maybe 10 occupations. But this breaks down that there's so many different occupations. There's so many different little things, even just outside of the occupations, when it comes to just handling your money, on how to become wealthy and get these things. So, man, yeah, like I said, 50,000 out of 5. I definitely treat this book, like I said, like a workbook, or just kind of like how you treat the Bible. Definitely prioritize the Bible over it, but just kind of how you treat the Bible, where you always going back to it. This is one of them books where you just go in and you breaking it down, writing it down, and forever keeping it on your shelf. This is an essential. So yeah, again, without further ado, thank you guys for tuning in. This is the Millionaire Next Door. You can find this book on Amazon, at Barnes and Nobles, at your local bookstore. This is a very well-known book. You can find it online. There is an audio book to it. Trying to think if I forgot anything. No, but man, guys, tap in with these type of books. You know, for my people out there that may be struggling, or kind of like, why am I not like accumulating, some of the wealth, or whatever the case may be, man. Like, these books help because you start to realize the little things, and no matter if you're starting at zero or if you got a little, you got a little bit of put to the side, you can always enhance and grow financially. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, listening to me, and stay tuned for more.